Hello and welcome to InvestorToday.ca. InvestorToday.ca is brought to you in conjunction with RBL Communications. I'm your host, Dave Glover. It is November 18th, and I am at the Montreal Cambridge House Resource Show. And standing with me right now is Redmond Weissenberger, who is the founder, or the CEO, I guess, of the Ludwig von Mises Institute of Canada. Hi, how are you, Redmond? Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, very nice to meet you as well.
So can you tell the viewers a little bit about what you do and what exactly is the Mises Institute of Canada?
My name is Redmond Weissenberger again. I'm the founder and director of the Mises Institute of Canada. And so what that is it's the institute that's dedicated to spreading the Austrian School of Economics within Canada.
Okay.
And what exactly the Austrian School of Economics is, it's in some ways it's real economics. Right. For the last, it was formed about 100 years ago, 100 and so years ago by a man named Carl Menger. And it was really fully developed by Ludwig von Mises, and that's who it's named after.
And that was in Austria?
Yes, that was in Austria. Ludwig von Mises eventually ended up moving to the United States of America.
Okay.
And one of his pupils, F.A. Hayek, won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 1974 for his work in the Austrian school many years earlier.
So can we talk a little bit about what Austrian economics is? I know that you were probably going to start to do that, but maybe you can explain to the viewers the difference between that economics school, if you will, and what we're currently living with right now here in the world of North America.
Well, essentially, I mean, we seem to be, right now, I mean, we seem to be almost living through a sort of a rehash of Keynesianism, right? So what some people would term Austrian economics is it's real economics, right? It's built up from the ground up, from the individual acting human, right? So the magnum opus of the Austrian school is called human action, and so within that book, what Ludwig von Mises does is he builds up his theory of economics and the theory of people, exchanging things, and his theories of money and trade and all these things from individual human acting. Now, the problem is with our current system, it's very top-down, right? Where you'll have people essentially macroeconomists or macroeconomics. What they're trying to do is they're trying to manipulate and control the economy from the top down. So what they're using is these very these big hammers. They're usually using things like monetary policy, government intervention, deficit spending. What they're trying to do is they're from the top down plan the stimulus of the economy, or they're trying to plan. Essentially, they're trying to plan the economy from the top down.
Right.
And what Ludwig von Mises would say is that really the economy cannot be planned; it needs to be built from the bottom up, not the top down.
So it's a more organic approach to the economy, if you will.
Exactly.
It's basically a grassroots, rather than focusing on the money, or what Reagan would call the trickle-down philosophy.
Yeah.
It's more about real supply and demand, right?
Yeah, real supply and demand.
It's about humanism as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, see, the problem is that you cannot. Number one, you can't plan society,
right?
And by extension, you can't plan the economy, right? And within the 20th century, what we saw in places like the Soviet Union, we saw across the Soviet bloc, was essentially the attempt to plan human society and the attempt to plan the economy.
Right.
And but unfortunately that push to plan society and plan the economy went across the world.
Right.
When you look at the New Deal in the United States, the creation of the Federal Reserve, the creation of the Bank of Canada, even things like socialized medicine, right? All of these things are attempts to essentially force people to act in certain ways within their economic lives, right?
But isn't that something that's in their better interest, though, to have that kind of plan?
Well, the thing is that only you can know your own interests, right? This is the thing, is that the Austrian school is based on the theory of subjective value. Only the individual can know what is valuable to them, right? Only I can know what I want to spend my money on. The government can't step in and say, okay, well, listen, I'll take half your wages in taxes, and I'll give you this kind of healthcare system, and I'll give you this kind of road system, and I'll give you this kind of a public school system. But essentially, what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, well, we know what is best for you. We're going to take your money and, hey, let's build a windmill, because everybody wants a windmill.
But isn't that democracy, though? Isn't that where the people choose who represents them, and then the representatives rather by a consensus sort of determine what everyone wants? That's just out the
well, the thing is, one of the scholars, the modern scholars of the Austrian school, is a man named Hans Hermann Hoppe, and he wrote a book that was called "Democracy: The God That Failed." Right, and the problem that we see today is, say in the United States, you might have a Democrat and a Republican, but essentially what they are, they're both statists, right? They both believe in state power.
That's right.
And so for the last 80 years, since the New Deal was put in, you've had almost no reduction in the size of government and the amount of spending. When you look at a person like George W. Bush and a person like Barack Obama, supposedly they're diametrically opposed, but on things, on pretty much all the major issues, you can't tell the difference. Barack Obama really is Bush 3. Right, and so the problem is we're voting in these politicians who never change. They don't change anything. The ratchet
on that point, though, because I understand your point where you're saying that Obama is basically Bush 3, a continuation of that outlying policy. But is his policy direction not driven by our current economic situation, or is it actually the other way around?
The thing was
he not obliged essentially to maintain, if you will, the status quo to a certain extent because the economy went into the toilet, or is that a misnomer?
Well, the problem was is that George W. Bush, because he was nominally a Republican, was seen as in support of free markets and smaller government, although he provided us neither freer markets, limited government, or a smaller, he actually raised taxes in certain areas.
Increased the public sector by 12,000 jobs.
Or more than that. Increased the public debt massively. So essentially, as far as, Barack Obama, Bush already was a liberal Democrat, essentially, in many ways. He extended the Department of Education, all sorts of things. And so when Obama came in, even though the free market had nothing to do with the economic downturn, right? The only thing that Obama could do, based on his, the stated goals of the Democratic Party, restriction of the markets, increasing of taxes, expansion of the welfare state. There's only one direction for him to go. George Bush was already expanding the welfare state. Barack Obama just said, I'm just going to keep trying to expand it even more. Bush put in Medicare Part D, which was an expansion of Medicare, and Obama said, I'll up the ante. I'm going to put in Obamacare, which is the attempt to essentially push in a single-payer system within the United States at some point.
So how do you figure? How would one presume now? This is a hard question for me to ask because I'm really sort of wondering if, say, for instance, we were to elect someone like yourself with your philosophy, your economic philosophy, what type of upheaval would we see in terms of the way government is run right now, and how quickly do you think you could implement something like that?
I'll tell you. The thing is that within our democratic system, the way it exists today, really politicians don't lead. Right? What they do is they wait until they see something out there that they can attach themselves to. They'll pick up on it. They want to go for something that they think has votes and has got legs before they will start promoting it. Right. Politicians are oftentimes the last people. So the reason why I created the Mises Institute of Canada was to start getting people thinking about the proper role of government within our society, proper role of government within our economy, so that those ideas can be out there for politicians to sort of pick up on them. Now, in terms of what an Austrian would do, if they were running the economy, you could look at Ron Paul. Right. Okay. He's a student of the Austrian school.
Huge fan of Ron Paul.
Yeah, well, he's a student of the Austrian school. Right off the bat, if you look at the American economy, immediately he would, get rid of the Department of Energy, Department of Education, and here in Canada, again, we don't need a federal energy plan. We don't need And most of what the federal government does is not needed. When you look at Canada, before the First World War, the entire government was run off tariffs, small tariffs that were placed on trade.
That's right.
There was no income tax. And certainly, there's no more medical technology today, but there's no reason why. There's all sorts of things in this world that we don't need the government to be paying for, or assuming that we want them to pay for it.
Well, a lot of people, a lot of Canadians think that the role of government is to take care of the people for whom they govern. Otherwise, why would we have a government? How would you answer that?
Well, I think the main issue is that it's to protect their rights, to protect their individual rights. It's not. The government doesn't exist. See, the issue is that I would say is that once we say once people suppose, well, and again, the government tells us that they're here to do this. They do a study. They do a poll. Oh, everybody wants more free things. So here, we're going to give you more free things. And we'll raise your taxes as well. I mean, this is the issue, right? Is if
because nothing is really free, is what you're saying.
Well, no, there is no free lunch. Essentially, is really what it is. But back to your point. And your point was?
If we were to...
Oh, yes, okay. So the issue, so the issue is, of course, that it's really the government's... The purpose of the government is to protect our rights. But also what comes with rights are responsibilities. Right? And what you're seeing today in the growth of the sort of... What many people would call the nanny state here in Canada is government is restricting our rights and taking away our responsibilities.
Exactly. Well, I would have to agree with you because they've really allowed Canadians to abrogate their own personal responsibility to this third party, whether we call it the government or you can call it your boss in some cases.
Yeah.
I didn't make that decision. I'm not going to be held accountable for decisions that I don't make.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's a lot easier to just to shove that off onto someone else. So I guess really the message is that people need to accept personal responsibility and be responsible for their direction. Regardless of where the government wants to take you.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. But it's just about freedom of choice. I think Milton Friedman, although the Chicago school did have some problems, Milton Friedman, he put it a great way. People have to be free to choose, right? And to be honest, that means free to choose the wrong things and the right things. And when you look at things such as the war on drugs. I mean, some people might have an issue with somebody, smoking marijuana, but I'm sorry, but throwing people in jail for it is absolutely the wrong way to do it. I mean, we already went. Now this is more touching on sort of libertarianism. The Austrian school is value free. It's Austrian School of Economics. It's a value free science. Now we've sort of drifted off into more sort of. The ideas of political theory, which is more...
I'm going to stop you right there, Redmond, and it was wonderful to meet you.
Okay.
Hopefully we're going to be able to get you on a regular basis on InvestorToday.ca, and maybe we'll be able to touch on some more of those topics and maybe touch on a lot more issues which Canadians are actually starting to reevaluate their government, the responsibility that they have, and maybe people should be taking more responsibility for themselves and accepting a little more responsibility.
Absolutely.
Well, again, wonderful to meet you.
Yeah,
hopefully we'll talk to you again. Okay. I'm Dave Glover with InvestorToday.ca. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.